Stephen Smith versus Jose Pedraza. Let me start by saying Stephen Smith, not a fighter who I have necessarily thought would get to world level as I've followed his career. I've been guilty at times of underestimating the Smith brothers. Callum Smith clearly is a slightly different prospect to the other three, and he looked like a guy who was going to very much get to world level from an earlier stage. But with the likes of Liam Smith, Stephen Smith, I maybe thought they were more British European level fighters. Liam certainly proved me wrong. It's time for Stephen to prove me wrong this week when he fights Pedraza. Stephen Smith, there's quite a lot to like about his game, but at times I felt he's had a tendency to be a little bit scrappy, sometimes not to be the cleanest worker in there, and sometimes, to get involved in fights where work is smothered, etc. As a result, I've not been left with the impression that he's maybe the cleanest boxer or anything of that nature. And it'd be interesting to see how he deals with the step up to world level in Jose Pedraza. Now, Pedraza, I'd admit, not a guy who I've watched extensively. I understand he had a fight with a guy, I think the guy's name was something like Edna Cherry or something like that. I haven't watched that fight. I understand that was very close, very controversial. Some people were suggesting it was a robbery. So, Pedraza is not someone I've watched his back catalogue on. However, I have watched 2 or 3 of his fights in the preparation to the build-up, and I like what I see. Pedraza's a southpaw, or he certainly fights out of a southpaw stance on several occasions that I've seen him fight. He's a guy who sort of stands at 3/4 range, does work off the jab, although his jab is not exactly a battering ram jab. Realistically, this is a guy who kind of picks away with the jab from the southpaw stance, but his inclination is to scrap. He likes to get in the pocket. He likes to fight on the inside, and what he truly has is a superb body punch. And whether it's a kind of straight punch, whether it's almost like a looping uppercut type punch, whether it's a hook, this guy has a way of landing heavy shots to the body. And when he steps inside, there's a bit more snap to his work than when he's on the outside. The punch combinations are thrown with more speed. They seem to be heavier, and this guy's educated on the inside. This guy seems to know angles on the inside. This guy's very sensible with his positionings on the inside. He'll throw a combination and it'll be 4 or 5 punches, and there'll be hurtful punches, there'll be flashy combinations with hand speed, and then he will turn. He will pivot in the ring. He will throw his punch and then he'll have a hand up and move to the side. He's actually someone who I would say is a pretty good inside fighter offensively, but also a pretty good defensive fighter on the inside. And it's actually quite rare for me to see a guy who is comfortable defensively on the inside. But the way for me this guy leans and pivots, he's hard to beat on the inside. I think he's skilled. On the outside, he's capable. With the southpaw stance, he does cause some problems. He also throws a good lead cross, which he often starts with, which is another punch to look out for. I really think the sort of lead cross from the outside and the combinations to the body in the pocket are the tools that Stephen Smith is going to have to look out for here. My slight concern with Smith is that, as I say, he does have a tendency to be involved in fights where the action does get a bit scrappy inside. And I think if he's inside with this guy and it's scrappy, he's going to be in a world of bother, because for me, Pedraza has a knack of landing really eye-catching punches in that zone. And even though it's a bit of a mess, even though it's slightly clumsy, even though guys are pushing back and forth against each other, if he can fire off a 3 or 4 punch combination and then pivot nicely and show that he's able to block a clumsy punch from Smith, he's going to have a huge advantage in this fight. And I actually expect Pedraza to win the fight on those grounds, because I don't think Smith is going to necessarily use the width of the ring, use lateral movement and box him for 12 rounds. I suspect Smith will get up close and make it tough in there, and that's where I think the game will play straight into Pedraza's hands. So for me, it's an interesting fight. It could, I'm afraid, have the potential to be a bit of a clumsy fight, just from my looking at it. But I just feel Pedraza is the smarter guy. I think he's the more educated chess player. I think he's the snappier puncher. I think he's the more eye-catching guy. And I think it's going to be hard for Stephen Smith to go away and get the win without knocking him out. And Pedraza's got some good defence at times from what I've seen of him. Look, I haven't seen the most of Pedraza. I might have got this wrong. And if I have, leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the fight. For me, I just think Pedraza's the classier operator of the two. And I'm going to go with Pedraza points. That's my thoughts on this fight. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Stephen Smith goes out and does it. And fair play to him if he does. But it's a tough ask for me. And I've never been truly convinced Stephen Smith is a world-level fighter. And I just look at this Pedraza and think he might have a little bit more in the tank. Admittedly, this isn't a prediction that I'd like to take to the bank. This isn't one of my more confident predictions. This is based on watching a few rounds on YouTube and scrambling about to see what I could find. Regardless, let me know your thoughts. Have you seen more of Pedraza than I have? Tell me about him as a fighter. Tell me about his style. How do you rate him? How do you rate Stephen Smith? Give me your predictions for the fight. If you've enjoyed this one, do hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe. Many thanks for watching.